A few years ago, a law was this an SEC? No, this wasn't an SEC order. It was an actual law that was passed requiring companies of a certain size to disclose their median worker pay and their CEO pay. And with that, we have a lot of data that gets published every single year on which companies have the lowest paid employees, where are the CEO pays in comparison. And it's always kind of interesting to look at and is being talked about right now, obviously with the UAW strike and the big automakers in terms of where they land. And so when looking at those companies, where do they land in terms of median pay and what the CEO makes compared to the workers?
Yeah, quick note that it was an SEC mandated disclosure that they put in on 2018 that the CEO's pay divided by the pay of a median employee.
So you want to be a publicly traded company, you got to produce this
exactly.
stuff.
And so where we see a lot of these major automakers, the multiple for Ford is 281 for General.
Meaning the CEO makes 281 times the median pay for the employee there.
Okay. That is correct. And then we've got General Motors at 362 and Stellantis at 365. Again, that's the average median employee salary and what the CEO makes. Over last year, the CEO of Ford, I believe, raked in about $21 million. That is 281 times the median employee earnings, compared with the multiple of 157 that his predecessor Jim Hackett earned in 2019.
So taking a look at Ford here, just to get granular with the details, the median worker pay at Ford is actually $75,000, $74,691, and so that is relatively high when you take a look at it. If I'm taking a look at, I'm going to rank these by the pay ratio, not by the median worker pay or anything like that. But in the S&P 500 companies, some of the big names out there that you'd be familiar with that have the highest CEO to median worker pay averages are, generally speaking, most of them are sitting in services companies. So Live Nation, the owner of Ticketmaster and several different performance venues across the country, has a pay ratio, the highest one in the S&P actually, of 5,414 to 1, with the median worker pay sitting at $26,000. So Ford and Stellantis look a little bit better deal in that context. The one big one here that I haven't been able to sort out is Oracle.
That was surprising.
Caught my eye. $75,000 median pay for the worker there. 1,842 to 1 in terms of the CEO pay. Coca-Cola, you would anticipate that pretty low median pay.
That's got to be Oracle stock performance and grants associated with it, because I just multiplied that out. That's 138 mil.
Yeah.
So you're only getting that through incredible stock performance.
Yum Brands, the owner of KFC and is it Taco
Pizza
Bell?
Hut, Taco Bell, is it all three?
Maybe,
of those?
Yeah. So big there. TJX companies as well. McDonald's making the top of the list. Apple as well. And the interesting thing about Apple, so the median pay at Apple is $85,000 because none of the people over in China that are actually assembling your iPhones are employees. So
right.
that's kind of an interesting one here where the median pay is super high because they don't include all those contractors, and yet it's making the top of the CEO pay list. No big surprise there with Cook raking it in there. But Chipotle, again, at the bottom of this list. When we take a look at the opposite end of it, so where are CEOs compared to their employees not paid quite as much? Well, Take-Two Interactive and Activision Blizzard, again, some weird things going on here, but the median pay there is at least $70,000 with Take-Two. Activision is over $100,000, so not surprising. Expedia, where they have probably a whole bunch of tech employees, coders, web designers, is over $103,000, so a relatively low CEO to employee pay at 11 to 1. So this in and of itself doesn't really tell you anything, right? It's unsurprising here, and quite honestly, I'm quoting all data that's a single year. This is all in 2022. It can get thrown off by things like you said, stock-based compensation, because what I can tell you is that, so Starbucks in 2022 made the bottom of the list here where the CEO only made 31 times the median worker. Well, the only reason that was happening was because in 2022 they had Howard Schultz stepping back in as the CEO, and my assumption is that he basically must have taken nothing in terms of compensation because according to this, he only made in 2022, 31
It was
times
372,
12, 254. Yeah, so something tells me that the new CEO, I forget his name, of Starbucks is not going to only be making $379,000, and therefore this is going to change. So you take a look at over 3 years and come up with an average. I think that's a more compelling story here and interesting. But I can also tell you that I don't think this tells you anything whatsoever about direction of a company.
Yeah, but let's spin it back to just the overall conversation regarding UAW, and maybe we can cover some of this after the break as well. We've seen significant pay increases for these CEOs because the profitability of those auto manufacturers has done tremendous over the course of the last couple of years. Limited inventory of cars, but they were selling them at higher prices, making a higher margin. They should be rewarded for that. The pay increases of the auto workers during that time period, because it was a 2019 negotiated contract, for inflation accounting for that, fell by about 5.5%. Now, there's some arguments to be made that they get strong benefits, which bumps up the hourly wage. But I guess my question to you is, where do you sit on the pay scale of these CEOs versus what the UAW workers are asking for here? I certainly agree they should ask for an increase to account for inflation in this next contract. I have trouble finding out what the right metric or right increase is.
I don't think it has anything to do with CEO pay. Right? I don't think you look at that and say, hey, because of this, because the CEO pay went up by 25%, the UAW worker pay needs to go up by 25%. Although it's an interesting negotiating tactic that wasn't available to them before. And quite honestly, if I'm the UAW, it's not about what I think is fair or reasonable. It's I'm going to get every penny I can out of this right now because I don't know the next time I'm going to have such leverage over my employer.
Great point. I mean, we saw it with the airlines, and we saw it with I believe the railroads as well. All of these unions are in a very strong position to bargain. So you better bargain when the leverage is on your side, because if we do go into recession and these contracts are coming up in an economic period of downturn, then you're not going to be able to have the same ability to get as much as you can.
No doubt.